His sudden death shocked the Christian community, but his life was just as shocking.
He begins to share with me more about the affairs.
Affairs, plural.
Yeah.
Riva Tims breaks her silence.
In the beginning, he was remorseful he got caught.
And reveals what happened the week before Zachary Tims died.
He says, I have something else to tell you.
Well, welcome to the 700 Club. It's time to get out the broom because it was a clean sweep for Mitt Romney in 3 primaries yesterday, including the big one, Wisconsin.
Now Romney is focusing his attention on the general election and President Obama. Charlene Israel has a story.
Mitt Romney swept the field in Wisconsin, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. It seems the pendulum has swung, and many skeptical conservative voters see Romney as their man. In Wisconsin, they said electability was the #1 factor in deciding their vote. Romney gained ground among voters who've kept their distance in the past. In Wisconsin, he lost the evangelical vote by only 3%, and he actually won the Tea Party vote over rival Rick Santorum. Romney now leads the race with 655 delegates. That means he now has more than half the 1,144 delegates to win the GOP nomination for president. But even before his latest wins, Romney was already in general election campaign mode, upping his attacks on President Obama.
It's enough to make you think that years of flying around in Air Force One, surrounded by an adoring staff of true believers, telling you that you're great and you're doing a great job, it's enough to make you think that you might become a little out of touch.
President Obama is sharpening his attacks too, taking Romney on in a television ad.
Mitt Romney stood with Big Oil for their tax breaks, attacking higher mileage standards and renewables.
And on the campaign trail.
I can't remember a time when the choice between competing visions of our future has been so unambiguously clear.
After Romney's 3-state win, many political observers say the GOP primary race is over, finished. But Rick Santorum vows to fight on.
Who's ready to charge out of the locker room in Pennsylvania for a strong second half?
Meanwhile, Romney is focusing on Pennsylvania, Santorum's home turf, as he looks to close the deal for the Republican nomination. Charlene Israel, CBN News.
Thanks, Charlene. Well, congratulations to Mitt Romney on extraordinary wins. And it's time for Rick Santorum, nice man that he is, to wake up and smell the coffee and say, okay, it's time to pack it in. It's been a good run. I've got some delegates. I've made a good show. I've said some important things. And I'll carry delegates to the convention, and I can have a big demonstration, and they can wave placards. But in the meantime, he's not going to be president. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN newsroom. Lee?
Pat, it is truly amazing that no one was killed or seriously hurt when tornadoes swept across the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But we did get an incredible view of the power and destructive force of these storms. Ephraim Graham has the story.
As sirens rang out across the city, residents took cover.
Get in the house!
More than a dozen tornadoes touched down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The National Weather Service called at least 2 of them large and extremely dangerous. One so large, it sent these 30,000-pound tractor trailers flying through the air. This was the view many drivers had as funnel clouds raced towards the highways.
And the car started to shake like this. I mean, almost left the ground. And all I could say, Jesus, save me from the storm.
In Forney, Texas, a grandmother is being called a hero. She took cover in a bathtub with her grandson and 2 other children. At one point, she clung to her grandson by his feet as the storm tried to rip him away.
She saved his life. She stayed on them, and the babies she babysat. She had 3 of them in there. She kept them all alive.
Today, as residents survey what's left of their homes, they say they're blessed to be alive.
I can't tell you how grateful I am that we're all okay.
Operation Blessing disaster teams are in the area today. Jody Geddes is the director of Operation Blessing's U.S. Disaster Relief. She says her teams will act as the hands and feet of Christ.
We arrived on the ground within 24 hours, and so as the sun came up, we came out here to do assessments, and the next order of business is walking through the neighborhood, just meeting residents and homeowners and seeing how Operation Blessing can help them. We have a fleet of equipment coming from 2 locations, Ocala, Florida, and Chesapeake. They'll be coming in within the next 24 to 48 hours with construction trailers, mobile kitchens, just different things to offer relief to the people here in Lancaster and the surrounding areas.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Thousands of homes are still without power in that area, and the Red Cross estimates more than 650 homes are damaged. But as we mentioned, no deaths or serious injuries have been reported. You know, Pat, most of the time these tornadoes strike in rural areas, and we really don't get a view of how destructive they are. But Dallas-Fort Worth, of course, is a huge area, so you've got all these mounted cameras on towers and aggressive news crews, and they gave us a bird's-eye view of what was going on there yesterday.
It went up 35. It was right there in the heart of it. I've got a daughter who lives in Dallas. I have 3 grandchildren who were born in Texas and Dallas, and my son-in-law and daughter.
How'd they fare out? Were they okay?
As far as I can tell, it didn't hit where they live. Yeah. They live in Highland Park, and I don't think it got to them. But folks, for those of you who want to help, and we're there on the scene, it's disaster relief. You could just send in a contribution. You could log on. Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. And we'll be there to help them as we were in Missouri and as we have been in other parts of the world. We're there to help those who are suffering. Lee has got an interesting story after the statements of the president.
That's right, Pat. A federal judge in Houston has told the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to submit a written statement on the role of the courts. The judge said many people were troubled by President Obama's criticism of the Supreme Court on Monday. The president said that if the high court strikes down Obamacare, that could be considered judicial activism. Well, the federal judge in Houston said he wants a letter now showing that the Department of Justice understands that the courts can strike down acts of Congress. He said the letter needs to be at least 3 pages, single-spaced, no less, and it needs to be specific. It needs to make specific reference to the president's statement. Sounds more like a homework assignment to me, but President Obama did seem to back down somewhat from his remarks about the high court, and Paul Strand has that story.
I don't anticipate the court striking this down. I think they take their responsibilities very seriously.
The day before, he was much more pointed, saying it'd be unprecedented for the justices to strike a law passed by a democratically elected Congress.
I just remind conservative commentators that for years what we've heard is the biggest problem on the bench was judicial activism or a lack of judicial restraint, that an unelected group of people would somehow overturn a duly constituted and passed law. Well, there's a good example.
But Justice Anthony Kennedy said last week it's definitely not judicial activism if the court throws out the whole law.
I suggested to you it might be quite the opposite.
He said it'd be more a case of judicial activism if the justices pick through the law piece by piece.
That, it seems to me, can be argued at least to be a more extreme exercise of judicial power than striking the whole.
Matthew Spalding at the Heritage Foundation isn't surprised by the president's attack. But if the court throws out the constitutionally questionable individual mandate that's at the core of the health care law and leaves the rest, Spalding says the court will have made a whole new law, a very activist thing to do.
If you take out the mandate, what's left is now a completely different law, which means, as Justice Kennedy pointed out in the oral arguments, it actually might be judicial activism to leave that in place. It's almost better and more judicially honest to throw the whole thing out and ask Congress to go back and have a clean slate.
And the court has many times thrown out parts of or entire congressional acts or laws, 158 times up until the year 2002, and more since then. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Now, Pat, here's a question. The president's remarks would seem to indicate that he believes the high court has not made its decision yet, but we were under the impression that they voted within 2 or 3 days after the hearings. What do you think the president's motives were here?
He's just trying to build up a head of steam going into the election. That's what everything has to do with the election, and it's public relations. But you know, he taught constitutional law. He knows better. You know, Marbury versus Madison was that case that Chief Justice John Marshall wrote, indicating that certain acts that the courts had the power to nullify, or at least question, and I have been in disagreement with that philosophically because I think the Congress does have the power under the Constitution, and we have given way too much power to the court. But nevertheless, in a case like this, the courts are following precedent that has been established now 200 years or so, and Obama knows better. He knows good and well that saying that a particular law does not comport with the Constitution is not judicial activism. And to make a statement like that is nonsense. And I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. He knows better. But he's a community organizer, and what he's got to do is pump up the troops and get the people marching to overthrow the bad guys. So that's where he's coming from. But he knows good and well from constitutional precedent of what they have that the court is within their rights over the years to question the constitutionality of an act passed by Congress. And this wasn't any overwhelming thing. It was a bare majority, and I understand there weren't any Republicans participating because they were opposed to it. So, I mean, he's just playing to the camera, playing to gullible Americans, hoping that he can fool them one more time. Lee?
The head of the International Monetary Fund wants more money from the United States in case the European debt crisis gets worse. Christine Lagarde says the IMF needs to have a cash reserve on hand if the world economy starts to turn down. She cited the European crisis along with the rising oil prices and high unemployment. She said that Americans may think Europe's economy doesn't really matter to them, but she argued that if Europe's economy weakens, it could hurt the U.S. recovery and American jobs. Do you agree, Pat?
She's a very striking lady, Christine Lagarde, very able, very articulate, worked here in America, speaks flawless English, but she's wrong. The United States taxpayers should not be asked to bail out the folly of Europe. And we're not going to do it, however much the IMF may plead. At least I hope we won't do it, Lee.
The president, members of Congress, and other federal workers will no longer be allowed to engage in insider trading. Today, President Obama is signing a bill aimed at stopping that practice. The measure also allows the public to see more of government officials' financial dealings. The obesity crisis in America may be worse than experts thought. A new report suggests the key test used to measure obesity is not reliable. Doctors typically use a person's body mass index, or BMI as it's referred to determine if a person is overweight. But new research shows that that formula often underestimates the level of fat in a person. There's a new and more sophisticated scan available now, and one scientist says it would reveal that between 50 and 60% of Americans would be categorized as obese. Under the current BMI measurement, the Center for Disease Control says 1 in 3 Americans is obese. Pat, the question is, do we really need a test to determine if we're overweight or not?
Right.
Take the tape measure away from me. I will not submit to those tests. I don't know, Lee. Who knows? They've got so many tests and so many scares and so many this, that, and the other. But the thing I want to focus on, and I know that the corn industry is doing everything it can to obfuscate the problem, but I really believe high fructose corn syrup is at the center of much of this obesity, and we need to get to the heart of it. They talk about sugar being bad, salt being bad, this, that, and the other. But I think high fructose, it's in everything, in all the drinks, and it's in so much food, and high fructose corn syrup. And I'm going to ask our staff to do an analysis and talk to some experts to see if we can find a balanced point of view as to the effect of that stuff, because something has triggered an enormous explosion of obesity in America.
I agree, Pat.
But Christy is not obese. She works out. She strains herself, and you look very nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you're right, I do. All right, coming up later, we're going to be taking your questions for Pat. All you have to do is log on to our chat room at cbn.com, and we can't wait to answer those questions. Well, up next, a look inside a country. Check this out, with 3 presidents, and half of the population is unemployed.
Hi, Hi there, neighbor. Pat Boone here from my good friends at Swiss America, the company that makes retirement dreams come true with gold. A lot of folks are shifting a portion of their retirement funds into a new precious metals IRA with Swiss America. And since 2004, these IRAs are up in value over 150%. I've been a very satisfied client of Swiss America for many years now because they believe in honesty, fair prices, and superior service. It's time to put your financial future on a gold standard right now. I own gold because it's a hedge of protection for my family. Even my grandkids can see that our paper money is becoming less valuable every day. So call or visit Swiss America now. Ask for the Pat Boone free DVD and gold IRA kit. Get the best education you can on gold, the best asset to own during these uncertain times. Call or visit online now.
Tomorrow, the first female governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, shares the power behind her Cinderella story. Plus, celebrate Holy Week with a 700 Club Classic. Sculptor Gil Amelio recreates the final hours of Jesus Christ.
You actually healed him. How did that go, Christ? Hey, Christ, can you see through that blindfold?
Tomorrow on the 700 Club.
Well, 20 years ago, a brutal war broke out that killed more than 100,000 people. It began when Serbian snipers took up positions in the hills around the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo and began shooting. Today, Bosnia is at peace, but it faces economic problems that could lead to more deadly fighting. Our George Thomas is on the scene to give us that story from Sarajevo.
Nestled in the Balkan Peninsula, the heart-shaped country of Bosnia-Herzegovina is trying to sell itself to the world and to its citizens. Glitzy television commercials showing the sights and sounds of the country have been running for years since the war under the slogan, "Enjoy life in Bosnia." But it's been a hard sell. A first-time visitor to Sarajevo might think that this is a very prosperous nation. The cafes, practically all the cafes in the capital city are jam-packed, just like this one, Monday through Sunday. But the reality is very, very different. In fact, half of this country is unemployed. Young Bosnians are hurting the most.
When we finish with our schooling, we aren't able to find jobs. The economy is so bad that businesses are not hiring. People are getting frustrated.
The lack of work has growing numbers seeking to leave the country.
There is no future for me here. I would leave if I had the chance.
And that pessimism has government officials worrying about brain drain.
I have 2 degrees but couldn't find work. So I moved to Vienna, and now I'm a dance instructor with my own studio there.
Mohamed Yushanovic runs a popular coffee shop in downtown Sarajevo. When you look around here, you see all these kids, all young people. Do these kids have any jobs?
Most of the people here are students or graduates who have borrowed a few dollars from their parents, and they come here, sit, talk with their friends, and have coffee. This is how they spend their time.
Yushanovic, like many others CBN News met, blame politicians and the culture of corruption for most of the country's economic mess.
My opinion is that our system of governance is not working. Nothing gets done because of the political divisions. Those in power don't feel like they have a responsibility to make this country better. Instead, they focus on rewarding their own ethnic group.
I think it was important to do this signing in Paris.
In 1996, the United States brokered the Dayton Peace Accord that helped end the 3.5-year war in Bosnia. The agreement created 2 semi-independent states, one for Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats, and one for Serbs. It also led to a power-sharing agreement with Bosnian Muslims, Serbs, and Croats rotating key government positions. The presidency also rotates between the 3 ethnic groups every 8 months.
We have 3 presidents. Can you imagine this? 2 agree, the third doesn't. Then it flips. One agrees, the other 2 disagree. And it goes on and on in circles, and the country suffers as a result.
This year's Index of Economic Freedom has Bosnia dead last among Balkan countries. In 2011, the nation's credit rating took a hit, downgraded from stable to negative. International investments have slowed. The World Bank ranks Bosnia 125th out of 183 countries in terms of ease of doing business. And the global economic slowdown hasn't helped either.
We're still a country in transition, and it might take a while before we can see brighter days.
The Dayton Accord stopped Bosnians from slaughtering each other, but did little to heal the nation.
16 years after the war, there is a semblance of peace. Many people are surprised that violence hasn't erupted, but when you talk to a Serb, a Croat, or a Muslim, very few people talk about reconciliation and a coming together within the society.
Do you worry about the future?
Look, for me, it's the basic things. I want my children to feel safe, feel secure, have a stable future, and to make sure the things that happened in the past don't happen again.
What are the chances that there could be another war in Bosnia?
Yes, the potential for another war is huge. I was a commander during the Bosnian War. I was here 20 years ago fighting on the front lines to defend Sarajevo. Today, I see all the reasons for another war. Economic stress, political divisions, ethnic divisions, religious tensions. It's all there. It's all a matter of time.
George Thomas, CBN News, Sarajevo, Bosnia.
It's a seething cauldron. I met with one of our graduates at Regent University who's doing some camps, and she told me that there are only 800, and I don't know, I haven't verified her numbers, but she lives there, 800 evangelical Christians. And that country, I began to understand, Croatia is one area, and Bosnia-Herzegovina is another area, and Serbia is another area, and Kosovo is another area. And that place where George was sitting, you know, that was the place where Archduke Franz Joseph was assassinated, and it kicked off the World War I. So it's a place of turmoil, and I hope and pray that somehow peace will be restored. But it was a very interesting look at it. And think of those, Christy, think of those young people. They got no hope. They got no jobs.
But, you know, as I was watching that story, Pat, all I kept thinking about was the division within that country. You've got 3 presidents. Nothing can be accomplished with 3 different mindsets, you know?
President Clinton brokered that one. I think he didn't do it. Well, they stopped the fighting, but it was a Faustian bargain, as they say. Christy?
Well, up next, we have an amazing story. Riva Tims talks about the last time she saw her husband, Pastor Zachary Tims, alive, just 1 week before his death.
He came to me and he said, "I'm sorry. Our family would have been okay if I had listened to better counsel and ran after and fought for my family instead of running and fighting for the church."
Pastor Riva Tims shares the rest of her story when we come back. That's my house.
Believe it or not, this is a catheter. It's the new SpeedyCath Compact for women, now available from Liberator Medical, with full Medicare and private insurance reimbursement. Stay tuned for an exciting free offer. But first, meet Julie.
You know when you leave the house and you say, okay, I have my phone, I have my keys, I have my wallet, I'm good to go? Now, I always have to think of a catheter because I can't go without it. SpeedyCath came into my life, and it is life-changing. They're tiny and thin, and you can fit them in your back pocket. You can fit them anywhere you need them. This is a lipstick or lip gloss, and this is the size of it. With this, you're only touching the outer plastic, and you're never actually in contact with the catheter itself. You just really have to give a sample. That's all it needs is one sample, and everyone's going to want them.
Now, here's that free offer I promised. Call Liberator Medical. Get your free SpeedyCath Compact sample 6-pack. Shipping is free. 1-800-595-1446. 1-800-595-1446.
Well, the cause of death of Pastor Zachary Tims remained shrouded in mystery 8 months after he was found dead in a hotel room. For now, the findings of the New York City Medical Examiner's Office remain sealed by court order. But Riva Tims, who was married to Zachary for 15 years, has begun speaking out. Recently, Riva talked with me about her life with Zachary when they were co-pastors of New Destiny Christian Center in Florida. She also shared how she moved from a place of betrayal and rejection to one of forgiveness and hope.
New details are emerging tonight about the death of megachurch pastor Zachary Tims.
Local pastor, he headed up a Central Florida megachurch. Police sources in New York City telling
in a New York City hotel room in August.
Zachary Tims,
the cause of death
has been found dead.
When I was a sinner, I had passion for cocaine. When I was a sinner, I had passion for...
The news of the sudden death of mega pastor Zachary Tims shocked the Christian community. He was a man driven by unlimited energy and great vision to win souls to Jesus. And in just a few short years, Pastor Zachary and co-pastor Riva Tims, his wife of 15 years, grew their church of 5 to an astonishing 8,000-member congregation. But the pressure of their meteoric rise would eventually take its toll on their marriage, on their ministry, and on the life of Pastor Zachary Tims. Riva Tims has spoken very little about the events that led up to the death of her ex-husband until now.
I love that he had a boldness about him. He wasn't afraid. He was always talking about thinking big, doing things grand, and that really pulled me in.
So I found my queen, and today, I love you, and I want you to marry me.
Zachary and Riva were 22 when they first met at church. With a shared passion to win souls to Jesus, they married, and shortly thereafter, ventured out to start a ministry in Orlando, Florida.
So we labeled ourselves as an outreach ministry. So our whole goal was to pull people in from the streets, not to pull them from other churches, but really to get those that were unsaved. And I think the people felt our love, they felt our sincerity, and we were young. We had a lot of zeal for the Lord, a lot of excitement. If God said go on TV, we had the faith to do it. If God said go into the community, we just had the faith to do it.
But as church membership grew at an astonishing rate, so did their status in the church world.
It becomes an empire. It becomes your own name that's highlighted. And it becomes about you when it's not, that's never how it's supposed to be. People tend to pull that out of you. And if you're not careful, they'll begin to worship you more than they worship God. In the beginning, it did not affect us. He used to put on the back wall humility, a huge sign. So every time he preached, he would see that. But then when we moved to our last building and TV, you know, we're on national television, people are calling all the time, it started to infiltrate the church.
And began to interfere in their marriage.
There was somewhat of a distance that began to take place. I could still connect, but I knew that there was something different. When he began to travel a lot and wouldn't allow me to go, then I knew something was wrong. And then, of course, I found out that there was, you know, infidelity.
A cheating scandal surfaced involving Pastor Tims
after he admitted to
weekend in a New York City hotel.
With a stripper.
Was there a level of remorse, the different choices that he made? Was there remorse there?
In the beginning, no. In the beginning, he was remorseful he got caught. And that's the part that hurt. There was no running after me, coming after me. He was trying to keep everything together. My heart hurt, not just in a spiritual way, not just in an emotional way, but a physical way. And I didn't realize that people hurt that badly. But the Lord told me, hold your peace. That was the hardest thing you could ever do. I loved my husband. The church belonged to God. I wanted my husband and I wanted my family. And if that meant that we had to sit down or step away from the pulpit for a season, I was willing to do that.
But Zachary was reluctant to step down from ministry to pursue counseling, but he did.
If I could have just had my husband sit down for a year. Now that's unheard of. Pastors are like, no, your church is going to die. No, if it belongs to God, come on. Someone else could come in, they could run the ministry and the family could get healed. But that's not how it happened. And people, well-meaning people, members, well-meaning, who love their pastor. Pastor, it's okay, we don't care what you did. Pastor, just come back. We're gonna support you. They became enablers as well, but not realizing it.
After only 3 months of counseling, he chose to resume ministry. Riva felt her husband's return was premature. Their family was still hurt and broken. But she was even more devastated by the reaction of the leaders within their church.
Actually, I was just kind of like, you know, booted out, you know, so to speak. And, you know, asked not to come back. It was like, you know, if they see you, they won't heal. I was told, so just stay away.
Believing things couldn't get any worse, Zachary dropped another bomb.
And he says, I have something else to tell you. And he begins to share with me more about the affairs and...
Affairs, plural.
Yeah.
When she tried to seek help from some other high-profile pastors,
they didn't want to hear it, or if they did hear it, they would say with that, get over it, it happened to me. You got to think about the church. You got to think about the ministry. And my mindset was, it first starts at home. You know, your relationship with God starts at home first before you can go out and minister. So that just kept bewildering me because I couldn't understand that.
By now, Riva felt abandoned by her husband, the church, and at times, God.
And I would try to rehearse in my mind, what did I do wrong that I would go through this? Because in all actuality, everything looked like he was being blessed and I was being rejected. And I kept saying, why are they rejecting me? Why are they blaming me?
But it was in that place of brokenness where Riva experienced the true loving heart of God like never before.
And I just began to see God in a whole new light. I realized he never left me. He was holding me. He was guiding me. He was instructing me. Although I couldn't hear him clearly, his love never stopped.
And that love would eventually transfer to her now estranged husband.
Many occasions I thought I forgave. It wasn't until I was just sitting in a room and I say, I hate him. I hate him. And I would just scream it out. And I was like, where did that come from? I thought I forgave him. But it was still rooted deeply. And it was bitterness. It was resentfulness because I felt you ruined my life. I felt you took everything away because of what you did. It wasn't until I began to pray for him. For real. And when I began to pray for him, I began to get compassion. I began to see the root of his struggles. I began to feel sorry for him. I began to feel love for him. Then, and only then, forgiveness came.
Wow. As Riva spent time in prayer for Zachary, the Lord revealed the areas of brokenness in her own life.
I began to take a look inside, and I didn't like what I found.
What did the Lord show you?
A lot.
Like?
Like self-righteousness, lust in my own self, just wanting to be accepted by men and not God. So he began to shine the light on the filthiness in me. Again, I was going through something. God was purging things out of me when I thought he should have just been dealing with my husband.
Right?
But he said, no, there are things in you that also has to be rectified and changed and done better. And thank God I listened.
Right?
Thank God.
Riva and Zachary's marriage eventually ended in divorce. Zachary continued in ministry while Riva quietly focused her attention on raising their 4 children. A week before Zachary was found dead in a New York hotel room, the couple had a chance to reconcile on a family trip to Puerto Rico. This picture was the last time they saw him alive.
He came to me and he said, I'm sorry. And then he ended up telling his church at a marriage seminar that I believe my wife would have still been with me and our family would have been okay if I had listened to better counsel and ran after and fought for my family instead of running and fighting for the church.
Today, Pastor Riva heads up a new ministry called Majestic Life Church.
I was given a call and I had to complete that. I teach no celebrity pastors, you know, it's all about God.
She's also written a book called When It All Falls Apart, a candid portrait of how God heals those facing heartbreak and betrayal.
His blood can cover anything, no matter how dirty, no matter how nasty, no matter how horrible, it will cover. But you have to make a decision that you're going to repent and not continue as a lifestyle. God's grace covers. But when you go through a situation, when you find yourself in a trial or a tribulation, understand that God's love and his mercy is amazing.
Wow, what an amazing woman.
Yeah, God's love and mercy is amazing. You know what, Pat, when I did her story, she really touched my heart because I kept thinking, you know, I asked her, I said, what's the core issue of why you're even talking. It has nothing to do with the infidelity and the different choices. She goes, Christy, it's simple. We gotta keep God first. And I think so oftentimes, and we all do it, sometimes we kind of begin to have extra accolades for pastors and worship pastors and worship the church. But really, it's all about Jesus Christ. And as pastors, as laymen, as servicemen, as co-hosts, as whatever, it's all about Jesus. Come on.
I say a hearty amen.
Amen. Listen, let me tell you about a book real quick.
Tell me about the book.
All right. She wrote, Pastor Riva Tims, she's lovely, by the way, wrote a book called When It All Falls Apart, Finding Healing, Joy, and Recovery, or Victory Through the Pain. You can get a copy of this book at any bookstore, and you can also log on to CBN.com and find more information there.
Okay.
Blessings to you. Oh, well, still ahead. He worked his way up to become the chairman of Interstate Batteries. Now, this first-rate businessman is behind the I Am Second campaign. Find out what that means when Norm Miller joins us later on.
It doesn't matter what anyone's done. God's forgiveness is bigger than any sin. And He can restore that life no matter how messed up and how broken and how much of a disaster they've made of it. If they've still got life and breath, God's hand is still extended, and He'll still, like that father ran toward that son, if they would turn, He'd do what He did for me. He'd take off running toward them, wrap His arms around them, forgive them, and change their life.
The sun used to make our outdoor deck and patio space so hot and uncomfortable, we couldn't use it.
But then we discovered the Sunsetter retractable awning. Our Sunsetter retractable awning opens and closes in just 60 seconds. It keeps our patio about 20 degrees cooler.
It provides instant shade and instant protection from the sun's harmful rays.
And our Sunsetter costs under $700.
But now you can get your Sunsetter for as little as $499 when you call now to get this special $200 discount certificate and free awning idea kit.
We love our Sunsetter retractable awning, and you're going to love yours too.
Sunsetter awnings are assembled in America and guaranteed to last for years. So call now to get this free awning idea kit with DVD, plus your $200 Sunsetter discount certificate.
But this is a limited time offer.
Call now.
Call now for your free awning idea kit with DVD and $200 discount certificate. There's no obligation.
Call 1-800-831-5530.
Welcome back to the 700 Club. President Obama hosted an Easter prayer breakfast at the White House today. He and Vice President Biden joined Christian leaders from across the country for a time of prayer and reflection. The gathering comes at a time of religious controversy. Catholic bishops and other clergy are still protesting the administration's requirement that church-affiliated groups provide insurance coverage with contraception coverage, including abortion-causing drugs. The president has also hosted White House events marking Jewish and Muslim religious holidays. New York City is increasing security at Jewish religious sites for Passover. Authorities say there is no specific threat for the Jewish holiday, but the added security is part of the city's efforts post 9/11 to fight terrorism. Experts fear militants will attack Jewish groups living outside of Israel. The city recently sent out extra patrols to more than 50 Jewish sites after an attack at a Jewish school in France left 4 people dead. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com. Pat and Christy will be back with more of the 700 Club after this.
My PSA was 14. One day, Janet says, "You're going to the doctor." I needed to get a second opinion, so we contacted Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
To find out more about our unique treatment options for complex and advanced stage cancer, go to cancercenter.com.
If you have prostate or lung cancer or whatever, you can see what their survival rates are.
You can also check for participating insurance plans. Cancer Treatment Centers of America is different. It's state-of-the-art medicine, unique treatment options, and a level of compassion that cannot be copied. Why? Our people. People who give you not only their expertise, but their humanity and the most thoughtful, well-organized, patient-centered care you'll find anywhere.
I didn't expect to learn a lesson about how to treat people by being in a hospital.
Every minute counts when you're fighting complex or advanced stage cancer. So please call or visit cancercenter.com today. Appointments are available now. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Care that never quits.
Speechless. Yeah! I just can't wait.
Search for the Publishers Clearinghouse Sweepstakes or go to PCH.com. That's PCH.com and enter. May 31st, you could win $5,000 every week for life.
To listen to our top songs of the week, go to CBN Radio at CBN.com.
Well, welcome back. 50 years ago, he was selling batteries out of trucks. Today, the chairman of Interstate Batteries is also selling something else. Take a look.
Norm Miller was a successful car battery salesman in 1962. He thought chasing money would make him happy, but Norm's life was empty, so he turned to alcohol to soothe his anxieties. Then, after 2 DUIs and a third close call, Norm was ready for change. After he cleaned up his act, Norm worked his way up in the company. In 1978, he became chairman of Interstate Batteries. Today, he spends his time with I Am Second groups, where he shares a life-changing message of putting God first.
Well, please welcome back to the 700 Club a good friend and a wonderful businessman and inspiring leader, Norm Miller. Norm, good to have you back with us.
Thank you, Pat. It's a privilege to be here.
Are you driving race cars or just sponsoring them?
Well, I am no longer driving them. I never really drove them. I just drove some, to figure out how you do it and get experience, take a little adventure. But we're still sponsor some, and we have 6 races we do with Joe Gibbs Racing. And matter of fact, Saturday week, we have our car running in Texas at the Texas Motor Speedway.
Do you?
Yeah.
Who's your driver?
Kyle Busch.
Oh, you got a top driver then. You're not playing around.
Yes, we have. No, he's wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, does that help your company, by the way, being sponsored?
It's interesting. One of your people here I was talking to last night said that he really became aware of Interstate through NASCAR.
Yeah.
And I really think so. I think the relationship of hooking up with Joe Gibbs, he coming off winning 3 Super Bowls out of Washington, and then to get into NASCAR, the combination gave us a lot of credibility that even though we were already distributing in most of the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Joe's a class guy. He's a wonderful Christian, wonderful man. Well, you started selling batteries 50 years ago. How'd you get to be chairman of the company? Did you buy it, or they just sold?
I kind of outlived everybody. No, I was really fortunate. The founder, John Searcy, was 22 years my senior, and so I got to work with him, and he mentored me for a number of years, and he kept me on track, and then so he decided he wanted to retire, and so I was able to. He made it available for me to purchase controlling interest in 1978. So I've been
fantastic.
Yeah, just the grace of God.
What was life like in those early days for you? You were struggling, weren't you?
Yeah, I grew up in Galveston, Texas, which back in the day, quote, was a wide open, illegal town. Everything, liquor by the drink, 24 hours. And prostitution, gambling, everything was wide open. It was totally payoff. And so I grew up there from 5 years old to into college. And so my dad was a big drinker, and I followed in his footsteps. I started drinking at 14 and partying and got just dependent on alcohol. And by the time I was actually 34 years old. And through that, and also I had set some goals for myself and accomplished them early for me, and I was empty. I mean, my life, I was not only empty, but I was anxious. I was growing anxious, and so I blurted out one morning after being stopped by the police and graciously let go. And I realized the next morning, I blurted out, "God help me, I can't handle it." I remember that, and he did, and a friend came to me and started telling me about the Bible, and I thought that was just old stuff. And he said, "No, you need to learn about it." So I did a study, I studied about the Bible, not reading it, to see if somebody could really embrace it, and was amazed with all the data that shows cognitively you can accept the scriptures from as being valid. Just look at the history primarily. And so I made a decision one night to receive Christ, and said, okay, if I'm going to do this, then I need to read the Bible. And so I started studying the Bible and be discipled and worked on it.
Did that take care of, were you an alcoholic, or are you just a heavy drinker?
You know, I probably was. And it's, I didn't drink for 17 years. And then I started drinking some wine now and then with meals, whatever. And from the truth standpoint, it would probably be wise if I didn't drink at all. It hadn't been anywhere near of the thing. But, you know, constantly, I say we humans have certain weaknesses, and probably that would probably be more wise for me not to, but anyway.
Sure.
So.
But that completely, I mean, turned your life around.
Yeah, oh, unbelievable, unbelievable. You know, but I got into the scriptures, and I started saying, okay, what does God want me to do? And so I started praying and learning the Bible and trusting God with it, and bang, here I am.
Well, what's this? You've got a book called I Am Second. What's this I Am Second campaign that you're working on right now?
Well, you know, I do Oswald Chambers most mornings for a devotional. And back in 1996, I started writing down, because it's just a day of the year, and I started writing down the year and where I am. And so I have like 17 years or 16 years now of every day pretty much where I've been. So I was writing it down in March of 08, and I wrote down 08, and I said, 08, I'll be 70 in the summer. My birthday is 1938. Yeah. So then I thought of 10, and I thought, you know, you never know when you're going to die. But I said, hey, that's kind of that's in the book, 10, you know. So I started sitting there thinking about my life, and then what came in my mind was, you're to be my witnesses in Jerusalem and Judea, Samaria, and all the earth. And I thought, well, I've done a lot in Dallas, Fort Worth, my Jerusalem. I've been involved with the Jesus Film, and we handed it out door to door and did, you know, search ministries. I've done things in Campus Crusade and a number of ministries. And then what came in my mind was, well, have you gone for broke? And I thought, what? You know, I thought, well, no, I really haven't gone for broke. I haven't done everything I could possibly do. And then the thought came in my mind, well, does it need to be done? Do you need to do it? Christ need to be lifted up in Dallas, Fort Worth? And so I thought, well, if people, a lot of Christians are not going to tell anybody, and a lot of people are never going to a church, so I said, yeah, Christ needs to be lifted up, and then said, well, then can you do it?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, yeah, I can do it. And then I got was, we'll do it. So I said, well, all right, I'll do it. And then I said, well, if I did do it, what would it look like? You know, how was that? You know, so I backed off right off. Okay, yes, I'll do it. Then if I did it. Yeah, and I said, well, if I was going to sell more batteries, what would I do? And I said, well, I have a truck and warehouses and people. And I said, we have churches and we have ministries and we have Christians. So I'd probably run a media campaign. So I've been involved with E3 Partners, who was the operative for I'm Second, and for a number of years, 20-some years. And so a person there, Adam Leidig, had been involved in advertising nationally. So I remembered that. So I said, well, I'll call them. And long story short, I got with them. They came up with the I'm Second theme, and they'd been praying. Their ministry mostly is church planting around the world, and they've been praying for a U.S. ministry. So we got together, and we ended up getting, started out with like Joe Gibbs and Darrell Waltrip from the racing, and Coach Dungy, and a bunch of mostly some athletes and all, and did testimonies, built a website, got it all up, went public with it December the 3rd in 08, and did a complete advertising campaign in Dallas, Fort Worth. Because understand, I'm thinking I'm thinking my Jerusalem. Right. So anyway, we went public. Everything went up on television. We had billboards, television, truck backs, everything, just like a regular media campaign for a business, and which was I'm Second. All it said was I'm Second with the personalities. And in 6 weeks, we were in 56 countries and had millions. Now we're at over 10 million people to the site in 212 countries. They stay on the site an average of 7 minutes.
Incredible.
Which is pretty rare for people fishing. And we've had, you know, just a number of God moments in people's lives that have been impacted because of I'm Second. And so we've had other campaigns now. In one of our best ones have been in Evansville, Indiana, of all places, that they've done a real good campaign there gosh, I've gone blank. Some in Orlando, and we have a movement going on. Kansas City's been an excellent
fantastic.
thing.
But you didn't know what God wanted, and then God said do it, and then you started to do it, and this is, next thing it's all over the world.
Yeah, well, one of the things that was really great, which I think you'll understand, is I thought about this and I said, wait a minute, man, that's going to be a lot of money. You know, how am I going to know? How am I going to know that this is worthwhile? This is what God would have me do. And what came into my mind was John 12:32. And this wasn't even a memory verse for me, but it says, Christ himself talking says, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men to myself.
That's right.
And I thought that came in my mind. And what I got from it was, hey, just lift me up. I'll handle the rest of it. And I remember the only time in my faith that I had like a weight lift. I felt a spiritual kind of, hey, I don't have to worry about that.
The Lord will do it.
So it's been, and of course, God was going to do the whole world, and I'm sitting here thinking about Dallas, Fort Worth, you know, my Jerusalem, but that scripture goes on, it says for the whole world.
What a marvelous testimony. Norm, it's so good to have you with us. Folks, it's called I Am Second. The head and owner of Interstate Batteries. You see his automobiles racing around the NASCAR circuit, and this is tremendous. He's got all kinds of pictures in here. This book is available where? Everywhere?
Pretty much everywhere, even in the normal bookstores.
Normal bookstores. Well, thank you so much for being here. I Am Second. What God can do with one life dedicated to Him. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you so much for having me.
God bless you. Okay, Christy, what's next?
All right, Pat. Well, Steve McCutcheon has been managing money for decades, and even in a rocky economy, his business is stronger than ever. Here's why.
Steve and Cynthia McCutcheon haven't slowed down in their golden years. After more than 50 years of marriage, they enjoy working side by side in the successful investment firm Steve launched in 2000.
Helping people manage their money is a mission.
For me, what makes it fun is thinking that I'm helping, that I'm contributing to something that he really has enjoyed doing and something that he's built.
The couple says their business success is a direct result of their obedience to God some 30 years ago. That's when Steve and Cynthia pledged $5,000 to CBN.
We just felt like God was leading us to do that, and it felt like God was blessing CBN, just felt like God had his hand on CBN.
The McCutcheons had always tithed to their church, but that marked the first time they gave more than that.
I watched a little bit more about what I spent at the grocery store or what I spent on new clothes, and God just provided. He just blessed, and we were able to do it.
Steve says because they obeyed God in their giving, the Lord has given him wisdom in the financial world.
We have been so blessed, and blessed in order to be able to bless, and our net worth has gone up exponentially.
The CBN partners say one of their greatest joys in life is giving.
CBN does so many good things, and they're everywhere. They're all over the world. And, you know, we can't go. That's not our calling. And this is a way that we can help.
God is faithful to His word. He wants us to take a step of faith, and He will bless that step of faith because that is our indication to Him that we believe what He says.
I tell you what, that's the key word. We have to believe what God says. But of course, the only way to know what He says is when we pray to Him and we read the Word, right? Listen, that's why we want to encourage you. That wonderful woman right there, she also said that she would love to go out into the nations to offer help, but she's only one person and she can't. But when one person gets together with another person and collectively as a group, do you know how much glory we can bring to the Lord by helping those who need our help? I tell you, that's what happens when you become a 700 Club partner. So that's why I want to encourage you right now. It's just 65 cents a day, $20 a month, and you can do what? You can change a person's life. So we're asking you right now to call 1-800-759-0700 or log on to CBN.com. And what are we going to do? We're going to give you this. Power for Life. Great ministry by Pat and Gordon. They're gifted in that area, you know. You really are. Yeah. Just want to tell you that. I'm trying to be nice today.
Oh, you really are.
So I think we give this every month. I'm not sure, but it sounds really good. So
it's every month.
It's every month. I'm glad you know. So call in. We're going to give this to you.
Q&A.
All right.
Questions.
We only have a couple more seconds, so we got to get into some of those questions. Are you ready? Here we go.
It's not seconds, but go ahead.
Okay. Karen writes, and she says, I started dating my current husband while I was separated from my third husband. I confess the adultery of the situation and have been rebaptized, but how can I feel cleansed?
Darling, I don't know. I mean, you're 3 husbands. You're like the woman at the well.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Well, that's what she had. You haven't. This isn't your husband. You've had many husbands.
Yeah.
Well, the Lord himself ministered to somebody who had had that situation, and she was forgiven, and she was treated to one of the most deep theological discussions in the whole Bible. So, does God love you? Yes, he does. How can you feel cleansed? Just go to the Word and confess what's there and receive healing. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
All right.
Allow the Lord to love you.
All right.
All right. Lynn says, I think it's Lynn. Yeah. Says, I had an illicit affair and I have asked for forgiveness, but is it okay to pray for the person I had an affair with as long as I avoid contact, or does that keep me connected to him?
I get a feeling that that's keeping you connected. Of course, you can pray for him to be saved, but I think the more you pray, there's an intimacy that is involved. I think you ought to let that thing go and turn him over to the Lord and say, Lord, I commit him to you. Now, let's get on with your life.
Yeah. I think I would probably agree with that.
Yeah.
Maybe just have someone else pray for him on your behalf.
Please.
Yeah. All right, Cindy says, growing up, I was abused by my own family. I'm having a very hard time forgiving them. Will I still be allowed into heaven if I die before I can forgive? Ooh, juicy question.
You will be, if the Lord has forgiven you, all sins and blasphemy will be forgiven the sons of men. And I think God will forgive you. Of course he will. You need, in terms of, the forgiveness has to do with miracles. If you want to have the flow of God in your life, you've got to forgive. That's what he says when you stand praying, be have aught against any, forgive. So just do it. I mean, you know, specifically, I tell you what, don't say, oh God, help me to forgive them. You say, oh God, I ask you to bless them. Go positive instead of negative. I ask you to bless them. I ask you to prosper them. I ask you to do this. And when you start praying positively, that negative stuff will come out of your heart. All right.
Remember the story that we just did with Riva, too? She was talking about her husband, about forgiveness, how she always thought she forgave, like, I forgive. But when she started praying for him and really interceding for him, then she saw him through God's eyes.
One more quick question. We got time.
Okay, Zach says, I have a Muslim friend. Is it wrong for me as a Christian to read the Quran so that I can understand his religion better and be a better witness to him?
No, it's not wrong to read it. I think you'll find it very boring, but if you don't mind getting bored, it's your opinion.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yeah, boring.
Not sinful, boring.
There you go.
All right.
Well, let's do one more. You want to?
No, I think it's all the time we got. Thank you very much.
All right.
Hey, listen, I just read a fascinating book the last couple of days. It was by Nikki Haley, who is the governor of South Carolina. She is a Sikh. She was born as a Sikh. She's a Christian. Her grandfather was in the British Raj, you know, he had a turban, riding a horse, very fine-looking man. She's an extraordinary person, a wonderful book. And she will be here tomorrow.
Oh, good.
So you don't want to miss Nikki Haley. Today, you leave you with these words from 1 Peter. Give all your worries and cares to God, for he cares. He cares about you.
Yes.
And in the time remaining, remember, we've got telephones available all day long. It's 800. It's the toll-free number, 759-0700. And it's so nice to see Christy. God bless you.
God bless you.
And keep you.
High five me.
We'll do it. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Good show.
Here at CBN, we see incredible things happen when we stand together.
That's why we want to thank the thousands of you who recently pledged to join the 700 Club.
Your monthly gift makes it possible to bring crucial help to people who need it most.
Each day, you have a part in healing the sick, feeding the hungry, and broadcasting the gospel across America and around the world.
You've brought hope and help to those in desperate need
and changed their lives forever.
just like you did for Luis, who lived with his family in a house he built from plastic and sticks. When his wife became gravely ill, you brought the doctor and medicine needed to heal her. You built Luis's family a new home and provided the tools he needed to earn a better living. You took this family from despair to happiness.
So please watch for this mailing and send in your pledge.
This year, millions will experience the love and saving power of Jesus Christ
only because you were there.